Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 6A, north, is P3 on standards. Dave B racing from South Africa in turn 4-5, the SEs is P1. Best lap is a 1:19.770. Wiremew is second on standards. Best lap is a 1:24.771. The race dictator from New Zealand in turn 6A, north, is P5 on standards. Wiremew is second. The race dictator in Namuro corner is P5 on standards. Wiremew in Connor corner is P2. Best lap is a 1:22.291. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in turn 2 is P4 on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 6A, north, is P5. The race dictator in Namuro corner is P3. Best lap is a 5:01.618. Toddy Mustang in Namuro corner is fourth. Ethan Bruce 777 in LE Diable is P4. Best lap is a 2:20.648. Dave B Racing is P1. Wiremew is P2. Best lap is a 1:19.971. Dave B Racing in turn 7A, north, is P2. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 2 is P5. Best lap is a 1:21.561. The race dictator in Gulch is second. Best lap is a 1:19.759. Dave B racing in turn 4-5, the SEs is P3 on standards. Toddy Mustang in Namuro corner is first. Best lap is a 1:19.106. Dave B racing from South Africa in Bridge Turn is P3. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the SEs is P5. Jason Short from New Zealand in Namuro corner is P6 on standards. Dave B racing in turn 6A, north, is P3. Jason Short is P6 on standards. Best lap is a 2:24.329. Dave B racing in Namuro corner is third. Jason Short in the kink is P6. The qualification session is at Mont-Tremblant 69 in St. Jovite, Canada. Wiremu in Connor corner is P1 on standards. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in Connor corner is 6th on standards. The race dictator from New Zealand in turn 6A, north, is 4th on standards. Dave B racing from South Africa in Bridge Turn is P2 on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 in Bridge Turn is P6 on standards. Wiremu in turn 2 is first. Wire is up 2.19 in turn 6A, north. Wire is up 2.29 in bridge turn. Wire improved is P1 with a 121.742. Dave B Racing is provisional pole with a 120.158. Jason Short is provisional pole with a 119.769. Toddy Mustang is P5. Toddy Mustang improved is P2 with a 120.015. .246 off pole. Toddy Mustang is up 0.28 in LE diable. Wire is 4th. Wire is up 2.28 in turn 7A, north. Wire is up 2.14 in the kink. Wire is provisional pole with a 119.579. Toddy Mustang in Namuro corner is P3 up 0.43 on standards. Toddy Mustang is provisional pole with a 119.302. The race dictator in the kink is P6 up 8.91. The race dictator improved is 6th with a 120.980. 1.678 off pole. The race dictator is up 0.15 in turn 2. Wire is 2nd. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Wire is up 0.78 in the kink. Wire is provisional pole with a 118.998. Jason Short from New Zealand in Paddock Bend is P3 on standards. Jason Short improved is 3rd with a 119.615. .617 off pole. The race dictator is P6 up 1.29. Best lap is a 120.980. 1.982 off pole. The race dictator improved is P3 with a 119.377. .379 off pole. Jason Short from New Zealand in turn 7A, north, is 4th. Best lap is a 119.615. .617 off pole. Wire in the kink is P1. Best lap is a 118.998. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 2 is 6. Ethan Bruce 777 is up 0.17 in turn 6A, north. Wiremew in turn 4-5, the SEs is P1 up 0.11. Ethan Bruce 777 is P6 up 0.21. Dave B Racing is P5 up 0.13. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 2 is P6 on standards. Jason Short is 4th up 0.24. Jason Short is up 0.11 in bridge turn. The race dictator is 3rd up 0.10. Dave B Racing in Namuro corner is P5 up 0.11 on standards. Jason Short in turn 4-5, the SEs is P4 up 0.29. Ethan Bruce 777 in LE Diable is P6 up 0.26. Jason Short in turn 6A, north, is P4 up 0.15. The qualifying session is now in overtime. Ethan Bruce 777 is P6. Toddy Mustang in turn 6A, north, is P2. Best lap is a 1:19.302. 0.304 off pole. Jason Short is 4th. Jason Short improved his P4 with a 1:19.493. 0.495 off pole. Dave B Racing in Namuro corner is P5. Best lap is a 1:20.141. 1.143 off pole. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 2 is P6. Toddy Mustang in Namuro corner is P2. Broadcast bot is 17th on standards driving a Mazda RX-3. The race session is at Mont-Tremblant 69 in St. Jovite, Canada. The race dictator is first. Wyremew is second on standards. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Wyremew is now P1. Dave B. racing from South Africa in turn 2 is P3 on standards. The race dictator from New Zealand in turn 4-5, the SEs is P3 on standards. The race dictator is now P2. Jason Short from New Zealand in turn 7A, North, is P3 on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 is P5 on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 is now P4. Jason Short in the kink is 5th. Wyremew in turn 2 is 3rd, 1.5 behind the race dictator. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the SEs is 4th, 0.1 ahead of Jason Short. Wyremew in turn 7A, North, is P3, 0.8 behind the race dictator. The race dictator in the kink is P2, 0.8 ahead of Wyremew. Ethan Bruce 777 in the kink is P5. Jason Short in Namuro corner is P6 on standards, 0.4 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Wyremew in turn 6A, North, is P3, 1.8 behind the race dictator. The race dictator in bridge turn is P2, 1.5 ahead of Wyremew. Ethan Bruce 777 is P5, 0.5 ahead of Jason Short. Jason Short in the kink is 6th, 0.4 behind Ethan Bruce 777. The race dictator is 2nd. Best lap is a 1:19.992. 0.653 off the fastest lap. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the Essies is P5, 0.4 ahead of Jason Short. Jason Short was 0.8 faster last lap. 15 minutes remaining in the session. The race dictator is second on standards, 1.1 behind Dave B Racing. Wyremew is third. Dave B Racing in turn 4-5, the Essies is second, 0.8 behind the race dictator. The race dictator was 1.3 faster last lap. Dave B Racing is now P3. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in turn 6A, north, is P4 on standards, 1.9 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing in Gulch is P3, 0.7 behind the race dictator. The race dictator in the kink is P2, 0.6 behind Wyremew. Toddy Mustang is fourth, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P3, 1.3 behind the race dictator. Wyremew exiting pits on standards. Dave B Racing is now second. Jason Short in Connor Corner is fourth on standards, 0.5 ahead of Wyremew. Jason Short was 18.2 faster last lap. Dave B Racing from South Africa in Le Diable is P2, 0.5 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in turn 4-5, the Essies is P3, 0.4 ahead of Jason Short. Dave B Racing in turn 6A, north, is second. Best lap is a 1:20.257, 1.682 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang in Gulch is P3, 0.5 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing in the kink is second, 0.4 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing lost fifth to Ethan Bruce 777. Toddy Mustang is P3. Best lap is a 1:18.575. Toddy Mustang passed Jason Short for second. Jason Short in Le Diable is P3, 0.2 behind Toddy Mustang. Wyremew is P4. Best lap is a 1:20.265. 1.690 off the fastest lap. Jason Short is third. Best lap is a 1:20.855. 2.280 off the fastest lap. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Wyremew in bridge turn is P5, 0.4 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Jason Short in Namuro corner is third, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Wyremew in Connor corner is fifth, 0.2 ahead of Dave B Racing. Jason Short in turn 4-5, the Essies is third. Wyremew in turn 6A, north, is P5. Dave B Racing in Gulch is P6 on standards, 0.5 behind Wyremew. Wyremew on lap 8 is 6th, 0.2 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing was 2.6 faster last lap. Jason Short in turn 2 is P3 on standards, 1.3 behind Toddy Mustang. Wyremew in turn 4-5, the Essies is 6th, 0.5 behind Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang in Gulch is second, 1.2 behind the race dictator. Wyremew in bridge turn is 6th, 0.8 behind Dave B Racing. Jason Short in Paddock Bend is P3 on standards, 1.2 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing in turn 2 is 5th, 0.9 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Wyremew exiting pits on standards. Toddy Mustang in turn 7A, north, is second, 1.3 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing is 5th, 0.6 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Toddy Mustang in Namuro corner is second, 1.0 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in Paddock Bend is P5 on standards, 0.5 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in turn 4-5, the Essies is P2. 0.9 behind the race dictator. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Dave B racing from South Africa in turn 4-5, the Essies is 5th. 0.6 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Toddy Mustang in Gulch is 2nd on standards, 0.2 behind the race dictator. Dave B racing in Bridge Turn is P5, 0.3 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Dave B racing was 1.9 faster last lap. Dave B racing passed Ethan Bruce 777 for P4. The race dictator is 2nd, 1.9 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 2.7 faster last lap. Wiremu is 6th, 3.2 behind Ethan Bruce 777. The race dictator in turn 7A, north, on lap 12 is 2nd, 2.2 behind Toddy Mustang. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 7A, north, is 5th, 0.2 ahead of Wiremu. Wiremu was 11.9 faster last lap. Wiremu in Bridge Turn is 6th, 2.6 behind Ethan Bruce 777. The race dictator from New Zealand in turn 4-5, the Essies is P2, 2.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Wiremu in turn 2 is P6, 0.8 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Wiremu passed Ethan Bruce 777 for P5. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the Essies is 6th, 2.2 behind Wiremu. The race dictator in Namuro corner is 3rd, 3.2 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is now 2nd. Jason Short exiting pits on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 is 5th, 2.1 behind Wiremu. The race dictator in turn 6A, north, on lap 14 is 2nd, 4.5 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 1.1 faster last lap. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the Essies is P5, 5.0 behind Wiremu. Wiremu was 4.2 faster last lap. The race dictator in Namuro corner is P2, 4.3 behind Toddy Mustang. Ethan Bruce 777 in the kink is 5th. The race dictator in turn 6A, north, is 2nd. Toddy Mustang in bridge turn is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Toddy Mustang finished P1. The race dictator finished P2. Jason Short finished 6th. Dave B Racing finished 3rd. Wiremew finished P4. Ethan Bruce 777 finished P5. Broadcast bot is 7th. The race session is at Mont-Tremblant 69 in St. Jovite, Canada. Jason Short from New Zealand is P1 on standards. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Jason Short lost P1 to Wiremew. Dave B Racing from South Africa in turn 2 is 3rd on standards. Jason Short in turn 4-5, the SEs is P2. Dave B Racing in turn 7A, north, is P2. Ethan Bruce 777 is P4 on standards. Dave B Racing in Namuro corner is P2. race dictator from New Zealand in turn 2 is third on standards, 1.8 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is second, 0.3 behind Jason Short. Ethan Bruce 777 is fourth, 2.5 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is second, 0.4 behind Jason Short. The race dictator in Namuro corner is P3, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing in turn 2 is second, 0.7 behind Jason Short. The race dictator in turn 4-5, the Essies is P3, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. The race dictator was 0.8 faster last lap. Dave B Racing on lap 3 is P3, 0.6 behind the race dictator. Jason Short in bridge turn is second, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in the kink is P5 on standards. Best lap is a 1:20.598. 1.211 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang is now fourth. Ethan Bruce 777 is third on standards, 0.1 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Jason Short entering the pits is P5. Toddy Mustang in turn 4-5, the Essies is P4. Best lap is a 1:18.848. Dave B Racing on lap 4 is second, 3.3 behind the race dictator. The race dictator was 4.6 faster last lap. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Jason Short exiting pits on standards. Toddy Mustang in bridge turn is P4 on standards, 3.1 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Dave B Racing on lap 4 is P2, 1.5 behind the race dictator. Ethan Bruce 777 is third, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. Jason Short entering the pits is P6. Dave B Racing in LE Diable is P2, 0.5 behind the race dictator. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the Essies is third, 0.1 behind Dave B Racing. Jason Short exiting pits on standards. Ethan Bruce 777 is now P5. Wiremew is 4th on standards, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Wiremew was 3.8 faster last lap. Dave B Racing in turn 7A, north, is P2, 0.7 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Gulch is 3rd, 0.6 ahead of Wiremew. Wiremew is 4th, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is 2nd, 0.6 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Paddock Bend is 3rd, 0.2 ahead of Wiremew. Dave B Racing in turn 2 is P2, 0.3 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in turn 4-5, the SEs is P3, 0.4 behind Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang was 4.3 faster last lap. Dave B Racing in turn 7A, north, on lap 6 is P2, 0.4 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 4.3 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang in Bridge Turn is 3rd, 0.3 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing in Namuro Corner is 2nd. Best lap is a 1:20.144. 1.296 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang in Connor Corner is 3rd, 0.6 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing in turn 4-5, the SEs is 2nd. Ten minutes remaining in the session. Toddy Mustang is 3rd. Toddy Mustang passed Dave B Racing for 2nd. Dave B Racing in Bridge Turn on lap 7 is P3, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in Namuro Corner is 2nd, 0.4 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing on lap 8 is P3, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in turn 4-5, the SEs is P2. Dave B Racing in turn 6A, north, is P3 on standards, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 0.9 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang in Gulch is P2, 0.3 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in the kink is third, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. Wiremu entering the pits is P5. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is P3, 0.8 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang is now P2. Dave B Racing in turn 4-5, the Essies is third, 1.0 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in turn 6A, north, is second, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Jason Short entering the pits is 7th. Dave B Racing in Gulch is third, 0.8 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2, 0.5 ahead of Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang was 0.6 faster last lap. Dave B Racing in Paddock Bend is P3, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Jason Short exiting pits on standards. Toddy Mustang in Le Diable is second, 0.1 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing is P3, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2 on standards, 0.6 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P3, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in Paddock Bend is second, 0.7 ahead of Dave B Racing. Five minutes remaining in the session. Dave B Racing in turn 4-5, the Essies is P3, 1.5 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in turn 7A, north, is P2. Dave B Racing in Bridge Turn is third. Toddy Mustang in Namuro Corner is second, 0.9 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in Paddock Bend on lap 11 is third, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing entering the pits is third. The race dictator from New Zealand in Connor Corner is P1, 1.5 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang in turn 2 is P2, 0.4 ahead of Ethan Bruce 777. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the SEs is P3, 0.3 ahead of Dave B Racing. Ethan Bruce 777 lost third to Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang in turn 7A, north, is P2. Dave B Racing in Gulch is P4. Best lap is a 1:19.898. 1.050 off the fastest lap. Ethan Bruce 777 is second, 0.2 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang is third, 0.2 behind Ethan Bruce 777. Toddy Mustang passed Ethan Bruce 777 for second. Ethan Bruce 777 in turn 4-5, the SEs is third. Best lap is a 1:20.434. 1.586 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang in turn 6A, north, is second, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Ethan Bruce 777 in Gulch is P4, 1.4 behind Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang in Namuro Corner is second, 0.5 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in Connor Corner is P3, 3.5 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 2.8 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang in turn 4-5, the SEs is P2, 0.5 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in turn 7A, north, is third, 4.0 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator from New Zealand in Bridge Turn is first, 0.4 ahead of Toddy Mustang. The leader has just finished the race. The race dictator finished P1. Toddy Mustang finished P2. Dave B Racing finished P3. Ethan Bruce 777 is fourth. Ethan Bruce 777 finished fourth. Wyremew is P5. Wyremew finished fifth. Broadcast bot is P8.